All right, welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into one of the biggest, oldest questions out there. What is the mind? Is it some separate, mysterious thing? Or is it just part of our physical body? You know, getting to the bottom of this might just change how you see, well, pretty much everything.
So let me ask you this. Are you a ghost driving a meat robot? I know, it sounds kind of silly when you say it out loud. But this idea that your real self is some non-physical ghost just piloting your body around has been our default setting for centuries. And if we're all being honest, it's probably how a lot of us still secretly think about ourselves.
So, where did this incredibly powerful idea of a ghost in the machine even come from? Well, to figure that out, we've got to jump back in time about 400 years and meet a philosopher named René Descartes. This guy was on a quest to find just one single thing he could know for absolute certain. So Descartes starts doubting everything. His senses, his body, the world around him, he questions it all. But then he hits a wall. He realizes there's one thing he just can't doubt: the fact that he's doubting in the first place. The very act of thinking proved he existed. And this one powerful idea, well, it led him to a conclusion that basically split reality right in two.
He came up with two completely separate realms. On one side, you've got res extensa. That's all the physical stuff. You know, matter, blood, bones, anything that has to obey the laws of physics. But on the other side, he imagined res cogitans, the thinking stuff, the mind. And he believed it was totally separate, weightless, invisible, a kind of divine spark. This is what we call dualism, and it's the official name for that ghost in the machine theory.
And you know, for a long time, this was a really comforting way to think about who we are. But then, in 1848, a truly horrific accident on a railroad in Vermont gave us the first piece of brutal physical evidence that maybe, just maybe, there is no ghost, that the machine is all there is.
So meet Phineas Gage. By all accounts, this guy was just fantastic. His bosses said he was their most efficient and capable foreman. He was reliable, he was well-liked, a real model citizen. Now remember that description, because it's about to change dramatically. During a routine job, an explosion sent a 13-pound iron rod rocketing straight through his head. It went in under his cheekbone and blasted out the top of his skull. And the incredible thing is, he survived. He was awake and talking just minutes later. But as you can see here, while his body healed, the Phineas Gage that everyone knew was gone. Forever. The man who was once so polite and responsible became profane, impulsive, and totally unreliable. His friends, they put it perfectly. Gage was no longer Gage. And this is the absolute key takeaway. If your personality, your very self, can be deleted by a piece of metal ripping through your brain, then that self can't be some invisible ghost. It has to be a physical function of your brain's hardware.
Okay, the story of Phineas Gage is some pretty powerful evidence that the mind is physical, right? But that brings up a really interesting question. If our thoughts are just physical processes, why on earth don't they feel physical? Why does consciousness feel so weightless?
Exactly. I mean, think about it. You lift a heavy box, you feel the strain, you start to sweat, you know you're doing physical work. But your brain is a total energy hog. It uses about 20% of your body's calories. Yet when you sit and solve a really complex problem, you don't feel any of that immense physical effort. The thoughts just kind of appear.
Well, the best way to understand this is to think of your consciousness as a user interface. It's just like the simple icons on your computer screen. You click an icon and something happens. You don't see the billions of calculations and the electricity firing through the circuits. Your conscious mind does the same thing. It hides all the messy reality happening underneath, so you can just have a simple, clean thought. It's an elegant illusion designed to keep things simple for you, the user.
And this right here is the heart of the whole illusion. Because we don't feel the biological machinery working away, we just assume there's no machinery at all. We think our thoughts are somehow free and immaterial because we don't feel the massive energy bill that's being paid with every single one of them.
And you know what? You don't need a crazy brain injury like Phineas Gage's to see this in action. In fact, you probably prove that the mind is physical every single morning with your first cup of coffee.
So as you go about your day, your brain produces this chemical called adenosine. The easiest way to think of it is as the physical molecule of tiredness. It builds up, plugs into receptors on your neurons, and tells them, hey, time to slow down, making you feel sleepy.
But now, enter caffeine.
The caffeine molecule is shaped almost exactly like adenosine, so it fits into those same receptors, but here's the trick. It doesn't activate them. It just sits there, jamming the lock so the adenosine can't get in. So that feeling of willpower you get from coffee, that sudden ability to stay alert, it's not magic. It's literally a chemical blockade happening inside your brain.
And this is where it all really clicks into place. Just look at this table. The feeling of willpower from caffeine, or that rush of confidence from alcohol, or the feeling of hope from an antidepressant. These aren't just abstract ideas. There are real mental experiences that are directly caused by a specific physical molecule changing your brain's chemistry. So if who you are can be altered by a simple drink, then you aren't a ghost. You are a complex but ultimately physical chemical state.
Okay, so the magic trick is over. We're not ghosts in machines. We are the machines. So what are the consequences of finally accepting that? What does this all mean for us?
The philosopher Gilbert Ryle, who actually came up with the phrase ghost in the machine, he called Descartes' big mistake a category error. And he had this brilliant analogy for it. He said it's like someone gets a full tour of a university. They see the libraries, the labs, the classrooms, all of it. And then at the end, they turn and ask, okay, great, but where is the university? You see the point? The university isn't some extra building you missed. The university is the organized system of all those parts working together. And it's the exact same thing with the mind. Intelligence isn't a ghost living inside the neurons. Intelligence is the incredibly complex organization and firing of those very neurons.
And when you really accept this, it leads to 3 pretty profound consequences. 1. If the mind is physical, it has limits. 2. It has costs. Thinking burns real energy. And 3, and this one might be the most important one for our entire future, if intelligence is a physical process, that means it can be built.
And get this, for all of its unbelievable power, the human brain, the machine that creates art and science and love, it runs on just 20 watts of power. That is less than a dim light bulb. It is, by a huge margin, the most astonishingly efficient computer we know of.
And that leaves us with one final massive question to think about. For all of human history, our intelligence has been stuck with the strict energy budget of biology, just those 20 watts. The great question for our time is this: what happens when we finally build an intelligence that doesn't have to care about the electricity bill?